I'd like to debate again about how pro football and pro wrestling are kind of alike in some extent. We know pro wrestling is fixed all the time. Hell, sometimes I think pro football games are pretty well fixed too, you know that. Well, let's look at last year's AFC championship game for starters between the Ravens and Patriots. And at the end of the game, the announcers were saying that, you know, the quarterback for the Patriots could easily have taken a couple of timeouts before the first half and gotten a touchdown or two, but they didn't, probably because someone up in the booth called down onto the field and told the Patriots, hey, you can't take a timeout here. We don't want you to take some timeouts now, because they were probably bought off to tell that to the team so that we could have Harbaugh versus Harbaugh in the Super Bowl. Wasn't that a little suspicious too? Wasn't that convenient? In the Super Bowl it was Harbaugh versus Harbaugh. And what really got me thinking was when the score was like 7-21, the power went out after half. You know, shortly in the third quarter, the power goes out for about 45 minutes to an hour, the first time in Super Bowl history. And when the power got back on, then it was a close game again. See, if a Super Bowl were to be a blowout like, you know, a few years ago when the Chargers went to the Super Bowl for the first time, that game ended up Niners 42-7 or something like that. That was like, you know, 10 years ago, maybe even 15 years ago. But anyway, if there's a big blowout in the Super Bowl, who's going to watch it? You know, and then they think, well, if no one's going to watch the Super Bowl, then what about all these people, all these companies that pay to have their commercials advertised during the Super Bowl? Because that's expensive, because the Super Bowl is one game, unlike baseball, which is like the best 4 out of, you know, 7, and the NBA has the final 4, you know. Not football, it's one game, winner takes all. So if the Super Bowl is a blowout, then it's like, who's going to watch it if it's going to be a blowout right away? If it's like 35-0, you know, in the second quarter, you know, and then it's like, we're going to lose viewers, we're going to lose butts in the seat, because people pay good money. These advertising companies pay good money to have their product advertised during the Super Bowl. So we have to kind of keep that to a minimal so that these people get their money's worth. That's all it is money. Money's the big thing with pro football. And that time when the Vikings could have gone to the Super Bowl against the Saints, that was right around the time when the Vikings quarterback took pictures of his wang and sent them to that cheerleader in New York, and their field goal kicker was making field goals from that distance. They could have tried a field goal for and won the game toward the end of the fourth in that NFC Championship game, but they didn't, because the NFL probably didn't want to risk having a perverted quarterback in the Super Bowl with pictures of his wang out there in the public. So that would not be good Super Bowl material. We couldn't have that. So that's why the Vikings didn't try a field goal. They could have. They had the timeouts, but they just pretty much just gave up and let the Saints win the game. And I'm thinking that's why too. And what was funny was they had the camera on the quarterback, and he's all there with this, you know, pissed off look on his face, like, you know, all madder than hell. And it's like, well, it's your own fault for taking those pictures and sending them to that cheerleader. That's just it too, because the NFL most likely has their prima donna franchises picked out before the, you know, season started, who they want to win the Super Bowl. That's what I don't get, you know. Not just the, you know, someone on the team is in on it, but you can tell the referees are in on it too. Like the Redskins game in that championship game with the Niners this past season, there was a call that could have been ruled in favor of the Redskins, you know, when the wide receiver, Holmes, caught the ball. You know, that could have been like easily a defensive pass interference or something like that could have happened. But what happened was they screwed the Redskins over so we could have Harbaugh versus Harbaugh in the Super Bowl last year, and then they blamed Beyonce for the power shortage. Yep, that bitch, it was all her fault why the Super Bowl lost power, why the arena in the Super Bowl lost power. Yep, it was all Beyonce's fault, was blaming on her. I wouldn't be surprised if they pay someone just to cut the power so that they could calm everyone down again and have the Super Bowl turn out to be a close game, because we have to keep people in front of the TVs, you know, because all these companies pay good advertising money to have their product advertised during the Super Bowl. And I just saw recently that someone got fined almost $8,000 for something like this. What's the big deal there? Guys like to, you know, goof around and taunt each other. We can't have that. Oh no, that would be considered a threat in the NFL. Just like hitting the quarterback. Yep, we can't have late hits on our quarterback, so we find one guy $15K for that. I'm surprised they haven't made that into flag football yet. You can't hit below the waist. You can't hit, you know, in certain areas. I think it's one thing to grab a face mask. That should be a penalty. Helmet to helmet causes concussions, but when you be safer playing flag football or touch football, you know, these guys are not so physical then. You know, they want to make these games fixed. Why not make it so that it's flag football so that these guys don't get hurt? Like in baseball, hell, these pitchers get, you know, rocked pretty good, like the guy for the Rays and the Blue Jays. I think the Blue Jay guy had a skull fracture because a ball hit him clearly in the face, coming at 100 miles an hour or more, about took his head off, and that would suck. It's almost like pitchers should wear helmets in baseball, while in football they should have flag football. Just like in wrestling too, you know who's going to win every time. I wouldn't be surprised if this Super Bowl comes down to either the Broncos or the Bengals for the AFC. And for the NFC, I wouldn't be surprised if it were to come down to the Seahawks or possibly Green Bay, but I could be wrong with Seahawks. I can see that. You know, or what could be the odds of Manning versus Manning in the Super Bowl? Shit, last year we had Harbaugh versus Harbaugh. Well, I just want to get this off my chest before it's too late, so we'll talk to you later. We'll see ya. Bye.